So we have speakers joining us from Spain, from Switzerland, and from Kuwait as well. So our first speaker for today is Ms. Luca Calanni, who is the co-founder of PropTech Academy in Switzerland, holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and a Master's of Science in Real Estate from the University of Applied Sciences. He has successfully completed the executive program in blockchain technologies from MIT and has successfully deepened his studies distributed ledger technology at the University of Zurich. He is the owner and founder of Calanni Estate Consulting and co-founder of PropTech Academy Switzerland. Prior to that, Mr. Luca Calanni worked in banking for various financial institutions, particularly in real estate finance sector and private banking. Joining us as well, Mr. Ibraheem Alsahan here with us in Bahrain. He has more than 15 years of experience in real estate, deal structure and valuation. He has a master's in real estate finance, high diploma in urban land economics. He was involved in valuing, managing and arranging deals for real estate that exceeded 20 billion US dollars. Mr. Alsahan is also a board member in the first PropTech Venture Capital Fund in the Middle East, Wathiq PropTech Venture Capital Fund. We have also joining us today Ms. Anouk Khan, who is the Chief Growth Officer at Cambridge Finance, a real estate financial training company, helping real estate professionals master the art of financial modeling. Her career spans across London, Dubai, and now Madrid. She has a mixed finance and real estate background, having worked with private clients first for Merrill Lynch, a global private bank in the City of London, and Deacon Capital, an independent financial services group. Then she switched sectors by setting up her own trunking consultancy for commercial real estate projects in Dubai. Mr. Mohammed AlMunaikh, who is the CEO of Ajar, joining us from Kuwait, the property management platform that is helping in digitizing the real estate industry. Mr. Mohammed joined Ajar in 2019 as a strategy director and got promoted to CEO by the end of 2020. Prior to that, Mr. Mohammed held investment management positions in Kuwait Investment Authority and Kuwait National Fund for SMEs. So please help me in welcoming our panelists for today. Thank you very much. So in light of the Kingdom of Bahrain celebrations of Bahraini women, we have celebrated that on the 1st of December, and we do that every year. I'd like to ask our panel today, considering that we are shedding light on women empowerment, and as we are focusing in this discussion also on innovation and sustainability in the real estate sector, can you share your thoughts with us on the importance of diversity and inclusion to support innovation in the real estate sector? Perhaps maybe Ms. Anouk Khan would like to answer that question.
Dr. Wade, thank you very much for your kind introduction. It's a privilege to be here in Bahrain for the National Real Estate Forum. And it's a pity I can't join you in person. As you mentioned, I am COO for Real Estate Women. That's a diversity network that was set up in 2012 in the UK to promote diversity and inclusion. And this is a volunteer role, which I'm really passionate about, because we need diversity and inclusion now more than ever. When we think of real estate, what do we mean by real estate? Real estate is built by people for people. It's where we live, work, and play. However, historically, real estate has always been male-dominated, and currently and globally, it's still the case. If I can just share some statistics with you. In a 2019 study by McKinsey, a survey showed that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on leadership teams were 25% more likely to have above average profitability than companies in the lower quartile. And I will now share 4 points demonstrating why diversity and inclusion is so important for innovation in Bahrain and globally. The first point, diverse teams are more innovative than homogeneous groups. What we mean is that when you have diversity of thought in a team, that allows more problem solving. So, for example, teams that are homogeneous, that are diverse, are better at anticipating changes in consumer needs and patterns, which can lead to the creation of better and new products and services. Diversity is not just about gender, it can take many other forms, for example, age, race, ethnicity, and sexual orientation. London is one example where we have so many different communities that pose a lot of needs that are diverse on the built environment, as well as challenges. Also very important is the diversity of experience. For example, people with different professional and personal experience, which can involve areas of study, industry background, and international work experience, where we can learn to appreciate different cultures. Certainly in my case, I'm from Pakistan, I've lived in Egypt, I've lived in the UK, which is my home, I've lived in Dubai, and I'm now in Spain, and really having this richness of working with different teams gives me a different insight and perspectives when it comes to my day-to-day work. Number 2, improve decision making. Why? Because diversity brings different perspectives to problem solving, which can lead to more creative solutions. So the Boston Consulting Group carried out a survey from 1,700 companies of different size and varying country locations. And they used as the indicator of innovation the revenue generated from products and services in the last 3 years. And what did they find? They found that companies with above average diversity produced a greater percentage of innovation at 45% than those companies with below average diversity at 26%. Point number 3, when building teams, organizations should really seek diversity of experience. So, for example, real estate companies should look to hire talent outside of the real estate sector, because that provides a completely different perspective on the business. When people clash on different points of view, different thoughts and different visions, this can help create valuable and multi-dimensional strategies to achieve business goals. Number 4, and this is an important one actually, companies that remain committed to diversity and inclusion will in the longer run be stronger. Now, why is that? At the moment, we're seeing a massive resignation, not just in real estate, but in other sectors such as banking and finance, because people during COVID, during lockdown, have begun to reevaluate their purpose, and evaluating if their companies are aligned with their values. So companies that demonstrate a larger commitment to D&I will, in the longer run, have a lower risk to attract talent. So whilst I've shared some 4 very strong points why D&I is so important for innovation, currently we're facing a huge challenge. So according to a recent study by Colliers, 1 in 4 women are leaving the real estate sector. Why is that? This is because a lot of firms are sort of going back on their priority for diversity and inclusion. Pre-COVID, a lot of companies were really focused on making diversity and inclusion a strategic priority. But now with the consolidation of the different styles of working, productivity and revenues, that has taken a back seat. So in conclusion, diversity and inclusion are currently at risk, but it's really critical for business recovery, for resilience, and for innovation in our sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anouk, for giving a comprehensive overview of the meanings and importance of diversity in the real estate sector. Let's bring back the conversation to the room here. I'd like to ask Mr. Ibraheem, who's with us today. So in this digitized world, and particularly with the pandemic and the digitization that has become a must in every sector today, including the real estate, I'd like to ask you, what are the impacts of digitization on the sector today, and how will it change the landscape of real estate in the future?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you for having me here. And I want to thank BIBF for the great efforts that make this forum happening today. I'm pleasure to be here in Bahrain and speaking about this important subject about the real estate future and the innovation of real estate, because it's actually changing a lot of business models and changing a lot of the landscape of real estate now. Definitely for the last 10 years, we saw a tremendous changing and investing in this sector, the PropTech and technology in real estate, because it shows that there is a huge benefit from it. Let me talk a little bit about what's the phases of the real estate and how each phase can be impacted by property technology. First of all, if we talking about if anyone want to buy or sell or invest, or a developer who are seeking for opportunities in the real estate market, he will go and try to have more insights, more data, studies, visibilities of any location. So data analysis and having a huge data and platforms which can analyze these data and make it very clear to decision making for investors, for buyers, for even developers. It's very important. Going from this to having different financial options, like a platform for finance brokerage, a platform for crowdfunding, to have the money in hand, so the developer or investor can go and invest and acquire new properties. Also, afterwards, the second phase is construction itself. It's a huge hustle for developers. A lot of this projects or huge projects or major projects are facing issues and backdowns in the construction phase. So how we can embrace technology in the construction to monitor the project very well, to monitor the workers very well, to try to have new technologies of building, 3D building, 3D printing, for example, robot building technologies, which can enhance the efficiency, effectively finish the project on time. Afterwards, the last phase is managing these properties. So after finishing the construction, we will put human beings inside these buildings, these properties, how to manage it very well, how to cut the cost of services, electricity, water, etc. How to make it very environmental friendly, a place which monetizing all the day the air quality and how the people are occupied in this building in a healthy way. So all these things can be changed through the phases of real estate, starting from the idea to the construction phase to the management phase afterwards. And this phases can be impacted by property technology. We are seeing a lot of property technology which can help managing and help making good decisions and making investment decisions. And there is a huge also growth in investing on it. Like it's from 2016 until 2020, there is about 12-time increase in or growth in VCs or venture capitals who are investing in property technology. This shows a great opportunity for investor also, and for people who are trying to take out some of their investment portfolio from traditional ways of investing to investing in new things that can be very huge in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibraheem. We certainly would like to see more investment as well in those three stages and PropTech in those three stages, whether it is acquisition, construction, or management, as you have clearly illustrated. Okay, so let's send another question your way, Mr. Luca, if you may allow us to ask you. Talking about PropTech solutions, how advanced are these solutions today, and why haven't they yet been completely incorporated in real estate practices?
Hello to everybody, and thank you very much for having me today for this forum. It is a privilege to be here with you in Bahrain, and thank you to BIBF to make this happen. Well, thinking about PropTech solutions and how advanced are these solutions today, the crux of the real estate industry is that it has been functioning without transparency for decades, and that actors did not have to be innovative to establish themselves in the market. Digitization, on the other hand, has become the subject of a lot of studies in the real estate industry in recent years. The emerging literature analyzes attitudes towards technology and innovation within the real estate industry. The main aim is to identify the advantages of digitalization and highlight opportunities and risks for the actors. Little is known about the innovative capacity of real estate companies. However, as innovation research in the field of real estate technology has largely concentrated on technologies. However, the development of innovations depends on acceptance and integration by established companies. Many processes that determine day-to-day business can already be streamlined with simple applications of artificial intelligence. The potential for data-driven and concrete predictions is theoretically unlimited. The result of the current unexpected influx of venture capital into the real estate industry has challenged the conventional world of real estate while fueling innovation. In practice, however, both technical and ideological limits can be identified, which could be resolved with technological progress and a general rethink on the part of real estate stakeholders. PropTech companies are the driving forces behind digital development in the real estate industry. They dominate the headlines and sometimes cause unrest among established real estate companies. Within a very short space of time, an extensive landscape of PropTech company has emerged globally, creating a new level of transparency and efficiency, and in many cases, even new business models. However, a complete overview of the existing PropTech companies has not yet been able to establish itself. Various organizations try to determine the status quo of the PropTech landscape, but fail because of the lack of a uniform definition. The resulting information discrepancies create confusion and distrust among those involved and inhibit the development of new technologies. It was talking about with PropTech 3.0 marked the big leap into new technologies and to deepening user and administrative experiences. Examples of the technology types used are IoT, smart lifts, drones, and virtual reality. Blockchain also plays a role as a secure alternative for commercial and residential real estate financing. Today in PropTech 4.0, PropTech is no longer just a brilliant innovation. It uses the power of existing innovations to reduce costs and optimize existing structures. Algorithmic and sensor-controlled automation is currently reducing excessive energy consumption in buildings and promoting the most efficient use of space. Well, the main advantages of PropTech, say 3.0 and 4.0, are the optimizations and simplifications concerning the challenges that real estate industry will face. Efficient planning, construction, and use of buildings is a must for everyone involved. So PropTech 4.0 for example, is currently leading the modern office into an era of cost efficiency in an employee-oriented environment. New technologies based on the Internet of Things enable innovative solutions for the management of office space. At its core, the IoT enables physical or virtual objects to be connected via a network and information to be exchanged. By next year, it's said that 1 trillion IoT sensors, for example, will already be installed in the world. Like fintech in the financial sector, PropTech is in many ways the long-awaited technological increase in efficiency for the real estate sector.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luca, for your answer to this. I'd like to ask if Mr. Mohammed would have any comment on the same question. Would you like to add anything to this?
اهلا دكتوره فريم، مشكوره على هذه الاستضافه. طبعا بالنسبه حق الادفانسمنت or let's say the adaptation of PropTech and the future, I think we have to realize or to lay down the fact that real estate is it's a titanic industry. It's the second probably or the first after the financial services, and it's valued around probably above $20 trillion. So that industry by itself will being very fragmented in terms of services and service providers, from the landlord to the tenant and everyone in between, constructor, banks involved, agent, and etc. They make it very, very difficult to make any change, because it will definitely, someone will lose their own job or their own work model. So making a change, it requires a lot of let's say momentum from different parties within the ecosystem by itself. Another part, by contacting and working in the PropTech space and with real estate landlords and property managers since 2016, we have realized that the dilemma into that actually avoid the transformation to digital setup are part of three. One is the workflow. I mean, if the landlord or property manager already have a set workflow, it's very challenging to ask them to do an update or an upgrade on the workflow if it's already working. I mean, so if it's already working, they are very comfortable with its own weaknesses. That's why they don't want to face a few new challenges in that space. The other part, on top of the workflow, they will add team structure. So there are already teams hired to do certain jobs that can be automated completely, and with the current structures of the team, sometimes there are a lot of personal bonding and relationship between the landlord, property manager, and probably the property guard or the collector or the accountant, and etc. Those jobs could be automated, but given the 20 or 30 years of relationship, it can be challenging. Because we also face some landlord probably saying that if I transfer my setup or workflow to a digital system, then probably I will have nothing to do. And he is like in his 70s. So by then it's very much survival instinct to refuse the digital transformation. But he also admits that transformation is happening, but my son will carry it on. It's not gonna be me. The third stage is going to be the mindset. A lot of people assume that if we move to digitization and have accepted payment online, this then open the door for some legal consequences, because they are comfortable with the current system. They understand all the loopholes. They do not know what's going to happen, what's going to go wrong if they move to digital software or solution. So these are the mindset that blocks actually any digitization plan from a landlord or property manager point of view. And however, on top of that, if the transformation happens, there is a lot of things that could actually benefit the market. For example, from a property point of view, property manager point of view, at least the market size will be bigger. For example, if you are a property manager in Bahrain, then you have all the resources that you need, from a legal collector, etc., and all the office setup, correct? But then to have one more unit in, let's say, Dammam or Kuwait, you have to create the same setup elsewhere, which is not efficient, not effective. Therefore, with the proper PropTech, you can have the same team located in one location, but then managing property across the region. That's the benefit of for example, moving to a digital transformation. Another benefit we see is basically having the ability to access data and analytics, as mentioned previously from the panelists. For example, during COVID-19, given the scale that we cover probably 15% of the Kuwaiti real estate through Ajar. So we know how the collection is happening across area, across city, even to the street level. So during COVID-19, we see differences between the collection from one property to another, and they are on the same street. So one is collecting at 80%, the other one is collecting at 10% of the expected collection. And then we called the one collecting at 80%, ask him what did he do, what was the activity that he is engaged in, and then we called the 20% collector, and the answer we got within the same street is collecting at 80%, and you should be able to get that. And we just told them, limits, and it's actually happened. So analytics and information is not being utilized currently from a real estate perspective, but what we are trying to offer is giving more color to the data that we have. Currently, I mean, every landlord can actually access his tenant credit score from a payment perspective, and based on it, whether renew the contract or not. So I think there is a huge potential from a PropTech and digitization, mainly in the decision-making and data analytics, but the transformation will require a lot of change in minds and time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed, and for shedding some light from your experience with the Ajar in Kuwait. So let's move from Kuwait to Switzerland. Back to you, Mr. Luca. I'd like to ask you, similar to digitization that we have been talking about, tackling sustainability has become more important than ever today in the real estate sector and all other sectors. How seriously are professionals in the real estate sector, in your opinion, are taking sustainability? And what are the reforms that should be introduced to create more sustainable communities and economies?
Well, I perceive it to mean that at least real estate investors are taking sustainability more and more seriously. The topic of ESG and environment, social governance is becoming more and more important. At least I believe that more than half of all institutional real estate investors are already dealing with the topic. In addition to the fundamental economic requirements for real estate investments, the topic of ESG will increasingly gain equal importance for institutional investors, because the requirements of the tenants as well as the buyers and sellers will gradually make the fulfillment of ESG criteria minimum standard. Without taking ESG criteria into account, you run the risk of not being competitive in the future with a company or the investment products, and most importantly, the real estate. Sooner or later, the issue of sustainability must be taken seriously across the board, because in the medium to long term, everybody will see falling prices and no ESG compliant objects. ESG is about delivering value to all the stakeholders, considering the impact your company is having both on people and on the planet, and going above and beyond to behave responsibly. By doing so, you are delivering better returns and stability for your assets. ESG issues are becoming an increasing priority across the world, and regulation is constantly encouraging companies to become more sustainable. These regulations, requirements, along with increasing investment demands, will undoubtedly encourage companies, real estate companies, to focus on improving their ESG rating. As time goes by, less sustainable companies could start to struggle to find investment opportunities. Finally, it is important to have high quality information. There is a need to gain traction in sustainability information, setting key performance indicators so that it increasingly approaches, both in quantity and quality, to the usual information seen in the reports of financial nature. It is necessary that the information be consistent, clear, comparable, auditable, and reliable. And above all, it is urgent to create a global standard that allows comparison in the real estate sector in a homogeneous way. My final sustainability tip is to tackle green initiatives strategically and set ambitious but achievable goals. Doing this will give something to aim for and increase the chance of achieving them.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luca. We'll head back again to Spain, back to you, Ms. Anouk. I'd like to ask you, what are the needed skills required for the real estate sector today, in your opinion? And what are the potentially the skills required in the sector in the future?
Well, Dr. Fair, we're seeing, I would just like to highlight some trends in like real estate innovation, and taking the UK as an example. We're seeing a surge in the creation and the use of smart buildings. For our flexible offices, for hospitality. We're seeing a lot of innovations in green buildings, and that's driven by climate change and sustainability. We're also seeing, for example, technology within buildings for cleaner air, obviously driven by COVID. There's also, with this whole surge of even more flexible offices, apps to locate flexible offices within 1 to 2 kilometers of where people live, and smart tenant platforms for both office and retail. So all of these trends highlight a need for new skills, which is technology skills. People will need to be much more versatile in being able to read data, because everything will be powered by data analysis, insight generation. There's also a huge need for green skills. As even Luca mentioned earlier, there's going to be laws around investors in real estate. And to do that, people need to understand how these laws translate into how commercial real estate makes their decisions on their portfolios. Let's not forget, we still need soft skills like critical thinking, problem solving, being able to work in diverse teams, relationship building, because a lot of the focus on sustainability and innovation will be through collaboration. So relationship building is very important. And to focus specifically on the Gulf, what we're seeing, putting my Cambridge finance hat on, what we're seeing in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, a lot of requests coming from the Gulf, from Kuwait, from Saudi Arabia, from Qatar, a lot of focus on companies and people who really want to understand. For example, there's a lot of inheritance that comes through in the Gulf. So a lot of people are inheriting wealth in the form of buildings or land, and they don't have the knowledge to make the right investment decisions for themselves and their families. So at a purely individual level, it's about learning even skills that we provide, of financial modeling and valuation, for individuals and women to make decisions that can, empower themselves. So really, you mentioned, what are the skills for today and for the future? I say, with COVID, everything has moved forward far more quickly than we anticipated. So it's really about focusing on skills that are straight away. I think soft skills, green skills, and technology skills. So that's
Thank you very much, Ms. Anouk, and all of our speakers from around the world will land back in Bahrain and ask you a question, Mr. Ibraheem, our last question of the session today. since you're involved with BIBF and teaching as well, I'd like to ask you, how in your opinion should the teaching and training of real estate change to adapt to these changes in the sector?
Of course, first of all, the way and the method of education now is changing. The e-learning and how to embrace the technology and having the information and the flow of information through all the world. Having this day, some of the panelists are from and around the world in various locations is a good example of how this kind of forms or education and training now is changing rapidly. I think how to make the newcomers to the workforce in real estate and how to make the trainers more adapt to technology is a very important element, and how to tell them what's the future of the jobs. I don't think jobs will be changed. The property manager will still property manager after maybe 20 years or 30 years. But the skills required to be a property manager, the skills required to be a broker, the skills required to be a developer, it will be changed. And the technology will play a huge deal in this changing. So as a trainer, I always try to make them open-minded to these changes and always read about the trends and what's happening. Also from the regulation point of view, how the government can help easing some regulation to make this people who have innovations come to the market and try to be like an accelerator for these great ideas to have it in the real life. Also, there is a third thing that I want to mention also, the investor, and trying to have an ecosystem for investing in these great ideas. Me as a board member of one of the first PropTech VC in Middle East, we saw a lot of great ideas, but it's still not live in the reality. So there is a big need of angel investor, VCs for pre-seed ideas, for seed ideas, for round A or B, which can give some investment, give some money, so these ideas can be a reality and can be a game changer in the future. Giving that to the trainers and let them know that there is a great place in the future to play with or to participate at, it's very important in this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibraheem. Certainly, BIBF is leading the Bahraini market in training and teaching in real estate and other financial sectors. I don't know if we have some time for questions and answers. Okay, so we'll open the floor for some questions and answers if anyone has any question.
Salam, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Mohammad Al-Fardan. Apparently, I'm the only person who will ask a question today. I just want to hear your thoughts about one of the ideas of PropTech, which is utilizing blockchain technology to do what we call asset tokenization, which is basically slicing down real estate assets into smaller slices of values or tokens, so to speak. So because that opens the doors for smaller and smaller investors to come into the market, because one of the big hurdles or one of the big barriers is capital, right? So if you open the door through asset tokenization, you will probably be able to bring in more investors. And this is actually happening. Some neighboring countries are exploring infrastructure asset tokenization, because when it comes to infrastructure, we all know that it's who's investing in infrastructure are the big institutional investors, pension funds, and what have you. So do you think that asset tokenization and democratization of real estate investment is on the way, and what are the challenges, the legal or like the policy making challenges against that? Thanks.
Would you like to answer that, Mr. Ibrahim?
Blockchain and this new terms of technology, it's coming, but it's still very immature in the market. I was in the Property Technology Week in New York in 2019, and there is some of experience in this way. It's still, I don't think there is something solid in the reality now, which use even blockchain or tokenizing the real assets in the real world right now. There is some like experiment going on. I think it will be something good or great in the future, but it's still immature now. Who will embrace these technologies, who will have a very great solutions how to manage it very well and have an added value to it, I think it will be good in the future. But now I think it's all experiment, and it's all like fancy, great terms, but I didn't see something in the reality. Blockchain as a way of having a governance or having a good way of transaction, making it very solid and very something that it's already known. It's now we have the governments are doing this role actually. Real estate are depending on government entities like land registry, like Ministry of Justice in Saudi Arabia, for example. They making the transaction, they approving the ownership of any real estate transaction happening. So how can that change in the future? I think it will be, but how, I'm not sure until now.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? If we can, oh, okay, you have the mic. Go ahead.
I don't know if it's, yeah, okay. Iman Minna'i, Director at GeoTech. Thank you so much for all the participants today in this informative session. We miss such networking and gathering, which is a major part in real estate industry. My question is to Mr. Mohammed from Kuwait. Actually, I was very curious to know what was the difference in allocation of the rental in the same area, and then his voice was cut off. So if he could please repeat, how can two property in the same area at the same timing with the same things have different allocation between the 20% and 80%? So as a person in this field, it's interesting to know what was the difference and such. Thank you so much.
أهلا شكرا على سؤالك. So the case was during COVID, after the lockdown, for 3 months period, I mean, tenants were hesitant to pay rent because there is a high uncertainty. They didn't know exactly what's going to happen next. A lot of people are getting let go by their employers. So uncertainty was high and cash was very carefully being spent out. And one of the biggest tickets is basically paying your rent on a monthly basis or quarterly or based on the contract. Yet, so what we saw is landlords within the same street level, they are not collecting equally. Equally, by that I mean if the landlord has like both of them, they have 10 units and they should be collecting like at least from 8. We see the collection at one property is 80%, but the other one is only 2 units are paying at 20%. So then when we analyze the differences by calling the landlord and checking the properties and the units, we found out that the landlord with the 80% collection has offered his tenant a 15% discount on the monthly rent. Therefore, they were more incentivized actually to pay their rent during the COVID period, while the other property did not offer any discount and was forcing actually his tenant to pay full rent, and his collection went down from 100 to 20%. So that was the data we gathered through that period. I hope this is answering your questions.
Thank you very much for a comprehensive answer. I think we have more questions in the audience, if we can get...
السلام عليكم. مشكورة دكتورة على السيمينار الحلو اللي جمعتونا فيه. أنا الكوهجي real estate student تعلم مدرستكم. I was very interested صراحة with Mr. Ibraheem Alsahan ومحمد المنيخ. My question to Mr. Mohammed Munich, first of all, I commend him for the success that he achieved in Ajar and obtaining 15% of the market share in Kuwait. It's very commendable, and my question to him is that if we go back in time, what would be his wish list of the 3 challenges that we could, let's say, steer away or take away from such individuals like him in order to breed more talented people like him? One of them was, Mr. Sahran said, angel investors, which is money is very important, but more of like the environment in terms of regulation or in terms of hub, how would he basically have his wish list of the 3 things that you would like to have? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the. I think it's mainly driven by the team, even if it started with an idea by Shaheen Al-Khudari, the founder. It could not survive and stay till this date and capturing the whole market, 15% of Kuwait, or even now we are at 2% of UAE as well, without actually the efforts of the team. So I would salute the team as well for their efforts in achieving that. Now, for the challenges that I wish weren't there, it's basically the main challenge, as I said, is the mindset. And the mindset from a landlord and real estate company that to move toward the digitization require a lot of messaging direct from the government, the RERA, for example, all pushing toward digital payment, digital transformation. This will give the landlord more comfort. And I know RERA in Bahrain at least is pushing for that, but we don't have like RERA in Kuwait, a similar authority. So, and even in, for example, in Dubai, they have RERA, but they are not pushing very much toward that digital transformation. So, because real estate is very, very traditional sector, and it is led by a very conservative landlord and mindset. Because if you are a big investor in real estate, and you are not a risk taker by definition, because you are investing all your money in an asset that give you like 4 to 6% at maximum. So you are, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. The line is disconnecting a bit, but we can hear chunks of what you're trying to say.
Hello?
I could grasp the idea. I don't know if you could, Enes,
finishing up with the line of thought, and basically landlord investors are very conservative. They accept 4 to 6% return normally. So when you ask them to do a risk move of transforming their whole workflows, require a lot of messaging, a lot of messaging from the government agencies, from the tenant as well. We had a lot of actually landlord coming to our system because the tenant asked for it, because it's much more convenient for the tenant. The landlord, as long as it is working, they wouldn't actually reinvent the wheel.
Thank you very much for your answer. We'll have a last question. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to ask the beautiful lady in Spain about D and I. Usually we have it here in Bahrain, D, E and I. There is equality in the middle. I don't know why you skipped it. And I've seen also a couple of other organizations, they don't emphasize on the equality. So when we have any organization, we have the diversity, we have the inclusion, but if they are not equal, I don't think it will serve the purpose. So I just wanted to comment on the E in the middle. Thank you.
Ms. Anouk, would you like to answer the question?
So that's a very good question, and I'm so glad you brought it up. Actually, that there is the E. The E is for equity, and you're right. I should have mentioned that in my points. But it's a very good point. Actually, the focus is on equity because equity means we want not just equal opportunities, but certainly equity in terms of the pay. Right? We want to reduce the gender gap. In the UK, we've got a massive focus on the ethnicity gap. We want to reduce the ethnicity gap. So yes, the E is the equity part that we need to focus on, which is what I omitted to forget. But I'm so glad that someone in the audience did pick it up. So it does mean that it is in the hearts and minds somewhere in Bahrain, in the real estate. So I'm happy to take that up again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Anouk. With this, we have concluded our panel session for today. I'd like to thank our panelists from all around the world and for Mr. Ibraheem for being here with us. And I'd like to thank BIBF, Dr. Ahmed and Ahmed Naimi. Thank you very much for inviting us to be here and for letting us have this opportunity of gathering again, finally, physically. And I'd like to thank also Engineer Ahmed for the generosity of Diyar Al Muharraq for making such events possible. Thank you all very much and have a lovely afternoon.